Hi, this is Alicia Slobodeniuk, and I created this video to demonstrate my expertise in social media marketing, specifically the platform Instagram. But before we dive in, it's worth just understanding the basic principles of Instagram, that is, how it works and who's using it. So, Instagram is a smartphone app with the original purpose of taking a picture, applying a filter to make it look more interesting, adding a caption, and posting it. And the idea was that you can instantly make a gram to send to your friends, or in this case, your followers. Unlike Facebook, which promotes more in-depth discussion and community organizing, or Twitter, which provides that real-time update and feeds soundbite culture, Instagram is really a place to form your brand story and, of course, your general appeal as a politician. And you do this by building an interesting profile, which is what you see in front of you here. So Instagram's largest demographic is the millennial user, aka people who are currently between 25 and 40, and also the group with the largest buying power. And as such, the platform, essentially became a marketplace for brands and politicians to advertise to target a group of millennials, with a pretty small ad budget, at least compared to traditional forms of ads like TV. So, in short, this is really the power and the purpose. It's reaching those audiences effectively and inexpensively. Now, there's an incredible amount of nuances when it comes to Instagram, especially with hashtags or collaborations between brands or IGTV. But today we'll really just focus on the aesthetics of your grid. Okay, so what you see on the left is the current Instagram feed for a Los Angeles councilwoman named Monica Rodriguez, and on the right is a redesign of her grid done by me. So first, let's talk about the areas where the Councilwoman's team can elevate her brand. And in broad categories, we'll look at basic, graphic design principles like color correction. We'll also look at UI UX best practices, which stands for user interface, user experience. And finally, we'll just talk about basic campaign planning. So at a glance, I can see that the platform is not being used properly on the left, and I'll talk about why. This area here, these are called highlights, and highlights are videos that you previously posted to what's called your Instagram story, and you decided to retain them so that your followers can see them again at a later time. So, for example, this one is probably like a community event for, watching the movie Coco. And so I don't know if this adds enough value to the councilwoman's Instagram feed that I would have retained it as a highlight. Indeed, this area is really meant for materials that are considered evergreen, which means they will always be relevant. So on the right side, I reimagined her highlights the way that I would have done them, which is the first one is all about the councilwoman. So here you can see just information about her, followed by initiatives, events, which is going to be community events, webinars that she holds. We would kind of say them in this spot, business resources, and just art district, which would be information about her neighborhoods. All right, so as we move down the page, another improper usage that I see, and this really gets more into UI UX best practices, is we can see that there's tons of really just small text on each post. So putting a lot of text on a post is something that is not considered a user interface, user experience best practice. And the reason for it is one, it excludes the visually impaired from interacting with that post because there's just no way that all of this post can be fed into the alt text field of Instagram. And so if you can't read, and if you can't read, tiny font, you are excluded. You don't know what this is. In addition to that, even for those that are not visually impaired, you'd have to pinch the photo with your fingers on your phone in order to zoom in and try to read what's on it. Of course, the problem with pinching the photo to try to zoom in is that you are blocking the text with your fingers. So it's kind of a lose-lose no matter how you think about it. All right, so I'm just going to scroll down this feed so that we can talk about basic color correction. So in Instagram, there's a principle called, color story. Well, it's just branding in general. And so the color story is supposed to reinforce your brand, or at the very least, not make it a jetting or darting experience for the user. And so we can see that there's no real color story going on. In this case, we have, that vintage filter. Here we have, a high resolution image. low resolution image due to the overexposure, complete difference in colors, again, more of that small text. And so it's not a very pleasant experience, to say the least. And we can see as we scroll down, it's again, low quality images, no color story, no color correction, um, cut off imagery, and so on. So on the right side, I'll just briefly scroll down so that you can see, for something like this, medium small business, we incorporated this little swipe feature. So, and actually I'll show you one in action. Okay. So for this one here, the user would be able to press and swipe, and it would take them to more information about this adulting, webinar. So if you compare it with the original post, and actually I'll show you in mobile view. Okay, so this little circle, just pretend it's your finger. So as you swipe, it actually takes you through that carousel and those images are connected, so it creates like a seamless experience. But if you look at it, the first one is simply to attract the user. Adulting 101. What is this? College, jobs, money, wellness. Great, I'm interested. And then the next one actually has the information pertaining to the event followed by the registration URL. Though this is not the way I would do it, it was just a limitation. I wanted to use her existing data. So that's just one example of how we can create a better interface and experience. But again, as you scroll down, you can see the color story unfolding. In this case, I chose the theme of, blue and blue hues and boys in blue. And so if we think about this as not just color story, there's something bigger happening. This is what would be considered campaign based. And so I pretended that, I'm part of Team Emrod and we want to launch a big campaign about public safety, because of coronavirus. So what can we do? We launch a campaign where we are collaborating with the police. We have photo opportunities with the police. We show that we are collaborating with the state as well. We're doing speeches and we're also providing different resources. So small and business resources, here's a live webinar, and I've even created this custom icon so that whenever people see, this webinar icon, they know exactly what it's about. We've also, shown Monica Rodriguez in action. So she's out there, she's covering her face and mouth, so she's being, she's representing what is recommended by the CDC at this time. And so we can see that they're not just related in color, but they're also related in theme. So now as we scroll down, this would be getting into, perhaps the fall. And so you can see that there is a gradual change of the colors. And so in here we'd get more into like the red hues, and then we start, getting into that holiday season where you see a lot of red and green. And then we could really capitalize on her brand color, which is red. So I also understand that one might argue that it's very difficult, to plan the colors and the campaigns all at the same time. And argue that, with the advent of Photoshop, we're able to really manipulate it so that the feed can still look really good. So I'll give you one example. So we have this image here. In the original image there, it's actually extremely yellow. It's so yellow that it makes everything in here look yellow. And so here's the color corrected version of that same image. So we can see that, by simply removing a lot of the yellow from that image, we've managed to make it work into that feed, into that part of the story. And so it all still works very well together. So in short, if I were to reimagine her digital communication strategy on Instagram, I would first make sure that her profile is working synchronously with her website and other communications. Second, assure that her profile is working in tandem with her existing initiatives and any policy orders she's trying to pass. And then, of course, plan her Instagram on that campaign basis. And third, and finally, assure that her brand is being built responsibly by only using high quality imagery and understanding the UI UX best practices for the platform, specifically when it refers to alt text. Okay, so I thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and if you have any questions, please do feel free to email me at aliciaslobodaniuk@gmail.com. Thank you.